The rain hammered against the windows of Emma Clark's studio apartment in Capitol Hill, creating a rhythm that matched her growing anxiety. She stood in front of her bathroom mirror, wearing an old Nirvana t-shirt and cotton shorts, staring at her reflection with a mixture of defiance and doubt. "You're seriously going through with this?" she muttered to herself, examining the constellation of freckles scattered across her nose and cheeks. The sardas that had been her companions since childhood, the ones she'd learned to stop hiding around age 24 after years of heavy foundation. Her phone buzzed on the sink. A text from Sophie, her best friend and the architect of tonight's disaster in waiting. "Sophie, tell me you're getting ready. And by ready, I mean actually ready, not Emma ready." "Emma, define actually ready. Does brushed hair count?" Sophie, "Emma, mascara, lipstick, that blue dress I bought you, please." Emma looked at the blue dress hanging on her closet door, tag still attached. She'd received it 3 months ago for her 27th birthday. It was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that seemed meant for someone else's life. "Nope," she said aloud, grabbing her favorite jeans instead, the ones with the small paint stain on the left thigh from a logo design project last summer. She paired them with a simple cream-colored sweater, soft and comfortable. Her hair, a mess of dark brown waves, got a quick brush and nothing more. Sophie had set up this blind date with relentless enthusiasm. "He's perfect, Emma, successful, handsome, and he specifically asked for someone real, someone who doesn't play games." The irony wasn't lost on Emma. In Sophie's world, where she worked as an executive assistant at a major tech company, real probably still meant designer casual and professionally applied, no makeup. Emma was about to give a whole different definition. She applied exactly 0 makeup, not even chapstick. "If he wants real," she told her reflection, "let's give him real." The restaurant was called Altura, a sleek, intimate spot in Capitol Hill, known for its tasting menus and the kind of prices that made Emma's freelance designer salary weep. She'd Googled it earlier and immediately felt her stomach drop. This wasn't her world of $5 fio and food truck tacos. She arrived exactly on time, 7 o'clock, and gave her name to the hostess, an elegant woman in all black who looked like she'd never experienced a bad hair day in her life. "Right this way, Ms. Clark. Mr. Ashford is already seated." Emma followed her through the dimly lit restaurant, past tables of well-dressed couples speaking in hushed tones. Soft jazz played somewhere in the background. She became acutely aware of her canvas sneakers squeaking slightly against the polished floor. And then she saw him. Nathaniel Ashford sat at a corner table, looking at his phone with the kind of focused intensity that suggested he was solving world hunger or, at minimum, a very complicated email. He wore a charcoal grey suit with no tie, the top button of his white shirt undone in that effortlessly expensive way. Dark hair, sharp jawline, the kind of handsome that belonged on billboards. Sophie hadn't been exaggerating. He looked up as she approached, and Emma watched something shift in his expression, a micro moment of surprise, quickly masked by practiced politeness. He stood immediately, and she noticed he was tall, easily over 6 feet. "Emma?" His voice was deep, with a slight rasp that did absolutely unfair things to her nervous system. "That's me," she said, managing a smile. "Sorry if I'm not what you expected." Sophie might have oversold the packaging. For a split second, she saw confusion flicker across his face. Then something else. Curiosity, maybe. His grey eyes, she noticed, were locked on her face with unusual intensity. "Not at all," he said, pulling out her chair. "You're exactly on time. I appreciate punctuality." "Oh, good. We're starting with corporate speak," Emma thought. "This will be fun." She sat down, and he returned to his seat across from her. The table was small enough that she could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive that probably cost more than her monthly rent. "So," Nate said, setting his phone face down on the table in a gesture that seemed deliberate, "Sophie tells me you're a graphic designer?" "Freelance, yeah, mostly logo design, some branding work, the occasional website when I'm feeling ambitious or broke." She paused. Usually broke. A hint of a smile touched his lips. Honest. I like that. It's pretty much my only setting. I'm terrible at pretending. The server appeared, a young man with impeccable posture who explained the tasting menu with the gravity of someone describing a religious experience. Emma listened, trying not to wince at the mention of 9 courses. That was 8 courses more than she usually ate for dinner. "We'll do the full tasting," Nate said smoothly, "and the wine pairing." After the server left, silence settled between them. Not quite awkward yet, but heading in that direction. "So," Emma said, deciding to just jump in, "what exactly did Sophie tell you about me? Because I'm getting the feeling there might have been some creative editing involved." Nate leaned back slightly, studying her. His gaze kept drifting to her freckles, she noticed. Not in a bad way, just noticing. "She said you were genuine, creative, funny, that you don't take yourself too seriously. All code for disaster at formal events, but sure." This time he actually laughed. A real laugh, not the polite chuckle she'd been expecting. "And what did she tell you about me?" "That you're successful, smart, and looking for someone who doesn't want you for your money." Emma met his eyes. "Which, full disclosure, I didn't know you had money until I Googled this place and then spiraled into researching who could afford to eat here regularly." She watched him process this, waiting for the usual reaction. Either offense at being Googled or pleasure at being recognized. Instead, he looked almost relieved. "Did you find anything interesting?" he asked. "Depends. Are you Nathaniel Ashford of Ashford Tech Solutions, or is that a different guy?" "That's me." "Then yeah. Apparently you're kind of a big deal in the cloud infrastructure world, which I will pretend to understand if you pretend to care about kerning and color theory." "Deal," he said, and his smile was genuine this time, reaching his eyes. The first course arrived, something artistic involving scallops and edible flowers. Emma looked at it, then at the array of silverware beside her plate, trying to remember which fork was for what. "Start from the outside," Nate said quietly, picking up his own fork. "Work your way in." "Thanks. I usually eat over my sink, so this is fancy." "Same, honestly. When I'm working late, dinner is usually whatever the office kitchen has left." Emma raised an eyebrow. "The CEO eats leftovers?" "The CEO works 18-hour days and forgets meals are supposed to happen at specific times." He took a bite of scallop. "My assistant has started setting phone alarms to remind me to eat. That's either very dedicated or very concerning. Both, probably." They fell into easier conversation after that. Emma told him about her latest project, a logo for a local coffee roaster who kept changing his mind about whether he wanted his mascot to be a friendly bean or an angry bean. The emotional journey of coffee beans is apparently very important. Nate told her about the stress of scaling a company from 20 employees to over 200 in 3 years. "People think it's glamorous," he said, somewhere around the 3rd course. A delicate arrangement of duck and cherries. "But mostly it's putting out fires and hoping you're making the right decisions for people who trust you with their livelihoods." That sounds lonely," Emma said the words out before she could filter them. Nate paused, his fork halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly. "It is, actually." Something in his voice made Emma's chest tighten. For just a moment the CEO mask slipped, and she saw something raw underneath, the kind of exhaustion that came from carrying weight alone. "Sorry," she said. "That was true," he finished. "It was true." The moment stretched between them, surprisingly comfortable despite its weight. Emma found herself really looking at him, past the expensive suit and the perfect posture, and seeing someone who seemed as uncertain about this as she was. "Can I ask you something?" Nate said suddenly. "Shoot! Why didn't you wear makeup tonight?" Emma blinked. Of all the questions she'd expected, that wasn't one of them. That's direct. "Sophie mentioned you usually do. I'm just curious why tonight was different." She could lie, make it sound intentional and empowering. Instead, she went with the truth. "Honestly, I was annoyed at being set up. I figured if I showed up looking exactly like I do on a random Tuesday, One of two things would happen. Either you'd be cool with it, or you'd be disappointed and we could both go home early. She shrugged. Win-win. And what if I said I prefer it this way? Then I'd say you're either very enlightened or very good at saying what women want to hear. Nate laughed again, and Emma was starting to really like that sound. Fair enough. But for the record, he paused, his eyes meeting hers with unexpected intensity. Your freckles are beautiful. I've been trying not to stare at them all night and failing miserably. Emma felt heat rush to her face, which probably made said freckles even more visible. Thank you? You sound surprised. I spent most of my teenage years covering them up. They're not usually what people notice first. Then people aren't paying attention. The server appeared with the next course, breaking the moment. Emma took a long sip of wine, trying to process what had just happened. This wasn't how blind dates were supposed to go. She was supposed to be bored or uncomfortable or watching the clock. She was not supposed to feel her heart racing every time he smiled. By the 7th course, something involving chocolate and hazelnut that made Emma genuinely moan with pleasure. They'd covered everything from his nightmare of a business trip to Tokyo, where nothing went according to plan, to her disastrous attempt at learning pottery that ended with clay in places clay should never be. I'm banned from that studio now, Emma said, grinning. Apparently I'm a liability to the kiln. How does someone become a liability to a kiln? Turns out you're supposed to remove air bubbles from the clay before firing, otherwise you get what the instructor called an explosive situation. You exploded a pot? I exploded 3 pots in one session. They're still finding pieces. Nate was laughing so hard he had to set down his wine glass. Emma watched him, feeling something warm and dangerous bloom in her chest. He looked younger when he laughed, less guarded, human. I would pay good money to see you attempt pottery again, he said, still grinning. I would pay good money to never attempt pottery again. What if I rented out the whole studio? Private lesson. No witnesses except me. Emma's heart did a complicated flip. Are you asking me on a second date, Mr. Ashford? His smile softened into something more serious. If you're interested, Ms. Clark. I'm interested, she said, the words simple and honest. But I should warn you, I'm a disaster at most physical activities, pottery, sports, anything requiring coordination. Noted. What are you good at? Making people laugh, turning coffee into questionable design decisions at 2 a.m., knowing exactly which shade of blue will make a logo feel trustworthy versus desperate. That last one is oddly specific. It's a gift, also a curse. I can't look at any branding now without mentally redesigning it. The final course arrived, a delicate arrangement of petit four and artisanal chocolates. Emma had long since given up trying to maintain any pretense of sophistication and was simply enjoying herself. Can I confess something? Nate said, selecting a chocolate. Please do, I love confessions. I almost cancelled tonight 3 times. Emma looked up, surprised. Really? Sophie can be persistent, and I haven't dated in almost 2 years. I wasn't sure I remembered how. Well, for what it's worth, you're doing pretty well. You've only checked your phone once and you've made me laugh at least 12 times. Only 12. I need to step up my game. 13 now, the bar isn't that high. They lingered over coffee, neither seeming eager to end the evening. Emma learned that Nate was originally from Boston, that he'd moved to Seattle for college and never left, that his parents called every Sunday without fail and still worried he worked too much. Nate learned that Emma had a younger brother studying marine biology in San Diego, that she'd wanted to be a cartoonist as a kid, that she still couldn't parallel park to save her life. When the check finally came, Nate handled it so smoothly Emma barely noticed. They walked out together into the Seattle night, the rain having softened to a light mist that hung in the air like glitter. "Can I walk you to your car?" Nate asked. "I took the bus, actually." He looked genuinely surprised. "You took the bus? To Capitol Hill at night?" "I take the bus everywhere. I don't have a car." "Let me call you a car service at least." "Nate, I take the bus home from bars at 2 a.m. I'll be fine at 9:30. He looked like he wanted to argue, then seemed to think better of it. Instead, he pulled out his phone. "At least let me text Sophie that you got home safe," Emma smiled. "Deal." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with the particular awkwardness of a first date ending well. Emma had no idea what the protocol was. Handshake? Hug? Kiss? Nate solved the problem by stepping closer, his hand coming up to gently tuck a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so unexpectedly tender that Emma's breath caught. "Thank you for tonight," he said softly, "for being exactly yourself. Thanks for liking exactly myself." He smiled, and then, before she could overthink it, he leaned down and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead. Not her lips, which was somehow even more devastating. When he pulled back, his eyes were warm. "Text me when you get home?" "Stalker," she teased, but pulled out her phone to get his number. She walked to the bus stop, feeling lighter than air, completely unaware that across the street someone was taking photos of them together, photos that would complicate everything. Emma's phone buzzed with a text just as she unlocked her apartment door. "Sophie." "Well? Don't leave me hanging." Emma. "It was actually really nice." Sophie. "Nice? That's it? Just nice?" Emma. "Okay, fine. It was great. He's great. Happy?" Sophie. "Very. Second date." Emma. "Maybe." Sophie. Emma. "Okay, yes. Probably. We'll see." She flopped onto her couch, still smiling like an idiot. On her coffee table sat 3 freelance projects with approaching deadlines, a stack of bills, and half a cold pizza from 2 days ago. Reality, waiting patiently for her to come down from cloud 9. Her phone buzzed again. This time, an unknown number. Unknown. "It's Nate. You made it home, okay?" She saved his contact, her smile widening. Emma. "Safe and sound. Thanks for dinner. And for not running away when I showed up looking like a before picture." Nate. "You looked beautiful. The scallops were just a bonus." Emma. "Smooth talker." Nate. "Truthful talker. There's a difference." Emma. "Is this where I'm supposed to play it cool and wait 3 days to text you back?" Nate. "Please don't. I'm terrible at waiting." Emma. "Noted. So about that pottery disaster date." Nate. "How's Saturday?" Emma. "Saturday's perfect." She set her phone down, still grinning, and noticed her reflection in the darkened TV screen. Messy hair, no makeup, freckles on full display. Exactly herself. For the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. What Emma didn't know, what she couldn't know yet, was that Nathaniel Ashford was sitting in his downtown penthouse apartment, staring at his own phone with a mixture of hope and terror. He'd meant every word he said tonight. She was genuine in a way he'd forgotten people could be, real in a world that felt increasingly artificial. But he also knew what came with his life: the scrutiny, the assumptions, the people who wanted something from him. He'd learned to protect himself, to keep walls up, to assume the worst. Emma made him want to tear those walls down, and that scared him more than any business deal ever had. The pottery studio was in Fremont, tucked between a vintage record shop and a cafe that smelled like burnt coffee and ambition. Emma arrived 10 minutes early on Saturday afternoon, her hands shoved deep in her jacket pockets, nerves doing gymnastics in her stomach. Nate was already there, leaning against a sleek black Tesla, looking completely out of place in jeans and a navy Henley. No suit today, just him. "You actually rented out the whole studio?" Emma asked, approaching with raised eyebrows. "I promised no witnesses to your ceramic crimes." He smiled, pushing off the car. "Plus, the owner seemed thrilled to close early for triple her usual rate." "That's very extra of you. I prefer thorough." Inside, the studio owner, a woman in her 50s named Patricia with clay perpetually under her fingernails, gave Emma a knowing look. "You're the explosion girl. My reputation precedes me," Patricia laughed. "Just try to keep the carnage minimal." She glanced at Nate. "Good luck," she said, then left them alone with 2 pottery wheels. several blocks of clay, and what Emma suspected was misplaced optimism. "Okay," Emma said, eyeing the clay suspiciously. "I should warn you this might end badly. I'm a terrible teacher and have never done pottery before, so we're even." They sat at their respective wheels. Nate pulled up a YouTube tutorial on his phone titled "Pottery for Complete Beginners." They watched a serene woman in linen create a perfect bowl while speaking in ASMR whispers about centering your clay and listening to the earth. That woman has clearly never met my clay," Emma muttered. "It's just clay. How hard can it be?" Famous last words. 20 minutes later, Nate had clay splattered across his forearms and a lopsided something on his wheel. Emma's clay had somehow ended up in her hair. "I think mine's fighting back," she said, wrestling with the spinning blob. "Mine looks like it's having an identity crisis." Emma glanced at his creation, a misshapen tower that leaned dramatically to the left. "Is that supposed to be a vase?" "It's supposed to be a bowl." She burst out laughing, and the momentary distraction caused her own clay to fly off the wheel entirely, splattering against the wall with a wet thunk. They both froze. Then Nate started laughing, that same real laugh from dinner, the one that made his eyes crinkle. "Oh, no," Emma said, but she was laughing too. "Patricia's going to ban you too now." "Worth it." He stood, grabbing a towel. "Here, you've got clay." He reached toward her face, gently wiping a streak from her cheek. His touch lingered just a second too long. Emma's breath caught. They were close now, close enough that she could see flecks of amber in his grey eyes, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. "This was a terrible idea," she whispered. "The worst," he agreed, not moving away. "We should probably—" He kissed her. Soft and sudden and perfect, his clay-covered hand cradling her face, her surprised laugh melting into the kiss. It lasted maybe 5 seconds before they both pulled back, smiling like idiots. "Sorry," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Don't be." They spent the next hour making increasingly terrible pottery and stealing kisses between failed attempts. By the time Patricia returned, they'd created exactly 0 functional items, but had covered most of the studio in clay and each other in smiles. "You two are disasters," Patricia said, surveying the damage with amusement. "But cute disasters?" Emma offered hopefully. "The cutest." She handed them wet towels. "Now get out before you break something expensive." Outside, the Seattle afternoon had turned grey and drizzly. Nate walked Emma to the bus stop, their hands brushing every few steps but not quite holding. "Same time next week?" he asked. "For what? More pottery carnage?" "I was thinking dinner, somewhere that doesn't involve clay or potential explosions." "That's probably wise." His phone buzzed. Then again, and again. Emma watched his expression shift, the easy warmth replaced by something guarded. "Work?" she asked. "Something like that." He looked at the screen, his jaw tightening. "Emma, I need to ask you something." The seriousness in his tone made her stomach flip. "Okay? Have you told anyone about us? About the dates?" "Just Sophie. Why?" He showed her his phone. It was a gossip website she'd never heard of, and the headline made her blood run cold. "Tech billionaire's mystery woman. Who is Nathaniel Ashford's no-makeup date?" Below it were photos. Clear, close-up photos of them outside Altura, of him kissing her forehead, of her laughing. "Oh, God," Emma breathed. "I'm sorry. I should have warned you this might happen." She scrolled through the article, her anxiety spiking with every line. They'd identified her. Emma Clark, freelance designer, unremarkable background, nothing special. The comments were worse. Half called her a gold digger. The other half criticized everything from her freckles to her homeless chic outfit choice. "I need to go," she said suddenly, shoving his phone back. "Emma, wait!" But her bus was pulling up, and she couldn't breathe, couldn't think. She jumped on without looking back, leaving Nate standing in the rain, holding wet towels and regret. Emma didn't answer Nate's texts for 3 days. She told herself it was because she was busy. a logo project for a new yoga studio, another for an indie bookstore that kept requesting more whimsy but professional whimsy. But the truth sat heavier. Every time she looked at her phone and saw his name, she also saw those comments. Gold digger, clearly punching above her weight. He must be going through some quarter-life crisis. Those freckles, though. Yikes. She'd read them all, despite Sophie physically trying to take her phone away during an emergency wine and takeout session on Sunday night. "They're internet trolls," Sophie insisted, pouring more Pinot Grigio into Emma's glass. "They literally don't matter. They think I'm using him for money." Emma stared at her laptop screen, where a half-finished sunflower logo mocked her inability to concentrate. "Who cares what they think?" "He might." Sophie gave her a long look. Did he seem like he thought that? Emma remembered Nate's face when he showed her the article. Apologetic, concerned, but not suspicious. Not accusing. "No," she admitted quietly. "Then text him back. It's not just the article, Soph, it's everything. He lives in a penthouse. I live in a studio apartment where the heater only works if you kick it twice. He eats at restaurants that require reservations. I consider it fancy when my ramen has an egg in it. So you're scared. I'm realistic. You're scared," Sophie repeated firmly. "And you're using the internet as an excuse to run away before you get hurt." Emma opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Sophie had known her since college, through bad haircuts, worse boyfriends, and the 6-month period where Emma had genuinely considered moving to Portland to find herself, before realizing she couldn't afford Portland either. "Maybe," Emma finally said. Her phone buzzed. Again. She'd been ignoring it so consistently that seeing Nate's name now made her chest ache. "Nate, I know you're probably overwhelmed, I get it, but please let me explain some things. Coffee? Tomorrow? Just coffee, no pressure." Sophie read over her shoulder. "Say yes." "What if—" "Say yes." Emma took a breath and typed, "Okay, but somewhere normal. Not Altura normal. Like human normal, Nate. Deal, I know a place." The place turned out to be a small cafe in Ballard called The Daily Grind, the kind with mismatched furniture and baristas with visible tattoos. Emma arrived first, ordered a drip coffee because it was $3 instead of $7, and claimed a corner table. Nate walked in exactly on time, wearing jeans and a grey sweater that probably cost more than her rent, but looked deliberately casual. He spotted her immediately, and the relief on his face was palpable. "Hi," he said, sitting across from her. "Hi." Awkward silence stretched between them, so different from their easy banter at the pottery studio. Emma traced the rim of her coffee cup, searching for words. "I'm sorry," they both said simultaneously. A small smile broke through Emma's anxiety. "You first." Nate leaned forward, his hands clasped on the table. "I'm sorry I didn't prepare you for that. The photographers, the gossip sites. It's been part of my life for so long, I forget it's not normal. I should have warned you that dating me comes with complications, like being called a gold digger by strangers." He winced. "Like that, yes. For what it's worth, I reported the article. It violated privacy laws. They took it down this morning." Emma blinked. "You can just do that?" "When you have lawyers on retainer, yes." He paused. "But that doesn't fix the comments you already saw, or how it made you feel." She studied him, the genuine concern in his expression, the tension in his shoulders. "Why me?" she asked suddenly. "What?" "You could date anyone. Models, executives, people who actually know which fork to use. Why risk all this drama for someone who showed up to dinner in jeans?" Nate's expression softened. "Because everyone else shows up trying to impress me. You showed up trying to be yourself." He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. "Do you know how rare that is? How exhausting it gets, wondering if people like you or just what you represent?" Emma felt something crack open in her chest. "I'm not good at your world, Nate. I'm not asking you to be. I'm asking you to give us a chance outside of it. I don't know if that's possible. You're literally in articles. I'm barely on LinkedIn. So we figure it out together." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But doubt sat heavy on her shoulders. What if I can't handle it? The attention, the judgment, the constant feeling like I'm not enough. Then we deal with that when it happens. But Emma, he finally took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. You are enough. Exactly as you are. I just need you to believe that too. The barista called out someone's order, a complicated oat milk latte situation, and the moment expanded around them. Emma looked at their joined hands, at the freckles on her own skin that had been criticized by strangers, and made a decision. Okay, she said quietly. Okay? I'm terrified and have no idea what I'm doing, but okay, let's try. Nate's smile was blinding. Yeah? Yeah, she squeezed his hand. But I have conditions. Name them. 1. No more restaurants where the menu is only in French. 2. You have to actually tell me when something in your world is going to be weird or complicated. 3. If this gets too crazy, we talk about it. No ghosting, no assumptions. Deal. Can I add one? Sure. You text me back within 24 hours, even if it's just to say you need space. The not knowing was... He stopped, looking almost vulnerable. It was hard. Guilt twisted in Emma's stomach. She'd been so focused on her own fear, she hadn't considered his. I'm sorry. I do that sometimes, disappear into my own head when things get overwhelming. I get it, just let me be overwhelmed with you sometimes. She nodded, and some of the tension between them dissolved. They stayed at the cafe for 2 hours, talking through logistics and fears and what dating actually meant for them. Nate explained his schedule, the board meetings, the investor calls, the traveling. Emma explained her freelance chaos, the feast or famine of projects, the weird hours, the inability to plan anything more than a week in advance. What if we tried something? Nate suggested, finishing his 3rd coffee, every Wednesday night, no matter what. Dinner, coffee, even just a phone call if I'm traveling. One guaranteed point of connection. Wednesday nights. It's the worst day of the week, middle of everything, no weekend in sight. Might as well make it better. Emma grinned. That's weirdly logical. I'm a weirdly logical person. I've noticed. As they left the cafe, Nate's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and grimaced. It's my mother. She calls every Saturday and I missed it because of the pottery disaster. Answer it, Emma said. I don't mind. He hesitated, then accepted the call. Hi, Mom. Emma could hear a woman's voice, warm and insistent, even from a foot away. Nate's whole demeanor changed, softening, becoming almost boyish. Yes, I'm eating. No, not just coffee. Actual food. He caught Emma's eye and smiled. Actually, I'm with someone right now. The voice on the other end went up an octave, excited. Mum, I'm not... Nate sighed. Fine. Yes, I'll bring her to Sunday dinner. He paused. Next week, I promise. When he hung up, Emma was trying not to laugh. Sunday dinner? My mother is convinced I'm going to die alone, surrounded by computer servers. She's been trying to set me up with her friends' daughters for years. He looked almost sheepish. I may have mentioned you. What did you say? That I met someone who makes me laugh. And that she's real. Emma's heart did a complicated flip. Meeting parents is like date 5 territory at minimum. We can wait if you want. No, she interrupted, surprising herself. If we're doing this, might as well go all in, right? You sure? She thought about the article, the comments, the fundamental weirdness of dating someone whose net worth had commas she couldn't count. Then she thought about how he looked at her freckles like they were constellations, how he'd rented an entire pottery studio just to make her laugh. I'm sure, she said. They walked toward the bus stop, their hands finally properly linked. An elderly woman passing by smiled at them, and Emma felt a surge of defiance toward everyone who judged them through a screen. Emma? Nate said as her bus approached. Yeah? Thank you for giving this a chance. She stood on tiptoe and kissed him, quick and sweet and public. Thank you for thinking I'm worth the chaos. On the bus ride home, Emma pulled out her phone and opened her Notes app. She had a logo due Monday, a website mock-up due Thursday, and now apparently a family dinner to stress about on Sunday. But for the first time in 3 days, the anxiety had shifted. It was still there. She doubted that would ever fully disappear. But underneath it was something else. Hope. Sophie called as Emma unlocked her apartment door. "So?" her friend demanded. "So, we're trying. And I'm meeting his mother on Sunday." Sophie's squeal was so loud Emma had to hold the phone away from her ear. "Emma Clark, you're meeting the mom? That's huge." "I know, I'm trying not to think about it. What are you going to wear?" Emma looked at her closet, a collection of jeans, t-shirts, and the blue dress still with tags attached. "I have no idea. Emergency shopping trip tomorrow. My treat." "Soph, you don't have to." "Yes, I do. You're dating a billionaire and meeting his family. You need at least one outfit that didn't come from a thrift store clearance rack. There's nothing wrong with thrift stores. Yeah, there's also nothing wrong with looking like you tried. Trust me on this." After they hung up, Emma stood in front of her bathroom mirror. The same mirror where she'd made the decision to show up to that first date as herself. Her freckles were still there, constellation clear across her nose. Her hair was still a mess of waves that never quite cooperated. But when she smiled at her reflection, she saw something different now. She saw someone worth taking a risk for. Her phone buzzed with a text. "Nate, just so you know, my mother is going to love you, probably more than she loves me. Emma." Setting the bar pretty low there. "Nate, strategic management of expectations. It's a business skill." Emma, romantic. Nate, "I have my moments." Emma fell asleep that night, with her phone on her pillow, a smile on her face, and absolutely no idea that Sunday dinner would change everything. The Ashford family home was in Medina, a waterfront enclave where modest meant 5,000 square feet and cozy required a staff. Emma stared at it through the Tesla's window as Nate pulled into the circular driveway, her stomach performing acrobatics that would impress Cirque du Soleil. "That's not a house," she said faintly. "That's a small hotel. It's actually smaller than most in the neighborhood." Nate parked and turned to her, concern creasing his forehead. "You're pale. Are you okay?" "Define okay." He reached over and took her hand. "They're going to love you. You keep saying that, but you also said your mother collects antique china and your father was a federal judge. I dropped out of my only ballroom dancing class because I fell into the punch bowl. You took ballroom dancing. Sophomore year. It was an easy credit. Turned out to be my hardest class ever." She looked down at the dress Sophie had insisted she buy, a simple navy wrap dress that somehow cost $200. "I'm wearing 3 months of grocery money right now." "You look beautiful." I looked terrified. Also beautiful. Before Emma could spiral further, the front door opened and a woman emerged. Late 50s, elegant in cream slacks and a silk blouse, with Nate's same grey eyes and a smile that seemed genuinely warm. "That's it," Emma muttered. "No escape now." Nate squeezed her hand once more before getting out. Emma followed on shaky legs, clutching the bouquet of flowers they'd picked up on the way, daisies, because roses felt too presumptuous, and she'd read somewhere that daisies meant new beginnings. "Mom," Nate said, accepting a hug. "This is Emma. Emma, my mother, Catherine Ashford." D. Catherine's eyes went straight to Emma's face, and for a horrible second, Emma imagined her cataloguing every freckle with disapproval. Instead, the older woman's smile widened. "Emma, I'm so glad you could come, and these flowers are lovely. Daisies are my favorite." She accepted the bouquet, then surprised Emma by pulling her into a brief but warm hug. Come in, come in." "Robert's in the study pretending to read but actually napping. I'll wake him." The interior was exactly as intimidating as Emma feared. High ceilings, original art on the walls, furniture that looked like it cost more than her car would if she had a car. But there were also family photos everywhere. slightly mismatched throw pillows, and a dog bed in the corner, occupied by an ancient golden retriever who opened one eye to assess them before going back to sleep. "That's Benson," Nate said. "He's 15 and has strong opinions about dinner guests. Will he approve of me?" "Depends. Do you give under-the-table scraps?" "Always." "Then you're golden." Catherine returned with a tall, silver-haired man who had the bearing of someone used to commanding courtrooms. Robert Ashford looked Emma up and down with an intensity that made her want to confess to crimes she hadn't committed. "So you're the one who's been making my son smile at his phone during board meetings," he said. Emma's mouth went dry. Then he grinned, a warm, genuine expression that transformed his whole face. "Good. He takes himself too seriously." He extended his hand. "Robert Ashford, pleasure to meet you." They moved to the dining room, where the table was set with the aforementioned antique china and enough silverware to stock a restaurant. Emma made a mental note of which fork Nate used first and tried to breathe normally. Dinner started with salad and polite conversation. Catherine asked about Emma's work, seeming genuinely interested in the logo design process. Robert told stories about Nate's childhood, including one about a science fair project involving volcanoes that ended with evacuating the school gymnasium. "The fire department was very understanding," Catherine said dryly. "I was 9, Nate protested. "How was I supposed to know you couldn't use actual lava?" "It wasn't actual lava, sweetheart. It was baking soda and vinegar that you somehow turned into a small explosion." Emma laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "So the pottery disaster comes honestly?" "Oh, there was a pottery disaster?" Catherine's eyes lit up. "Nathaniel, you didn't mention that." Nate shot Emma a mock glare. "Thanks for that. What are partners for?" The word partners hung in the air for a moment. Catherine and Robert exchanged a quick glance that Emma couldn't quite read. The main course arrived, beef Wellington, that made Emma want to weep with joy and also terror at the thought of cutting it properly. She watched Nate, matched his movements, and somehow made it through without flinging food anywhere. "So, Emma," Robert said, setting down his wine glass, "Nate mentioned you're self-employed. That takes courage in this economy." "Or desperation," Emma said, then immediately regretted it. "I mean, it's actually great. Flexibility, creative control, the freedom to work in pajamas. And the downsides." She could feel Nate tense beside her, but something about Robert's directness felt honest rather than hostile. Inconsistent income, no benefits. The constant low-level panic that next month might be the month with no clients. She paused. "But I love what I do, and I'm good at it. I'm sure you are. Nate doesn't waste time on people who aren't exceptional." The compliment was wrapped in such casual assessment that Emma wasn't sure how to respond. Catherine, apparently sensing her discomfort, changed the subject. "How did you two meet?" Nathaniel was very mysterious about the whole thing. Emma glanced at Nate, who nodded slightly. "Your call." "Blind date, actually. My best friend works at Nate's company and decided we'd be perfect together." Emma smiled at the memory. "I showed up convinced it would be a disaster." "And," Catherine prompted, "and I was wrong. Turns out blind dates are significantly better when the other person is interesting and kind and doesn't mind when you have no idea which fork to use." Nate's hand found hers under the table, squeezing gently. "Well," Catherine said warmly, "Sophie clearly has excellent instincts. We'll have to thank her." Dessert was chocolate mousse, and Emma was finally relaxed enough to actually enjoy it. The conversation flowed to safer topics. A book Catherine was reading, Robert's golf game, Nate's upcoming business trip to San Francisco. "How long will you be gone?" Emma asked. 4 days. Investor meetings mostly." He looked almost apologetic. "I leave Tuesday." "That's fine. I have a website project due anyway." "You could come with me?" Nate said suddenly. "If you wanted. I'd be in meetings during the day, but we could have evenings." Emma blinked. "To San Francisco, just like that?" "Why not?" She could think of approximately 17 reasons. starting with the cost of last-minute flights and ending with the fact that she'd never been the kind of person who just flew to California on a whim. But before she could voice any of them, Catherine spoke up. "That sounds lovely. You should go, Emma. San Francisco is beautiful this time of year." I'd need to check my schedule." "Say yes," Nate said quietly. "Please." The hope in his voice cracked something open in her chest. "Okay," she heard herself say. "Yes." His smile was worth every bit of anxiety. After dinner, Catherine insisted on showing Emma her garden, an immaculate space with roses, lavender, and a koi pond that probably cost more than Emma's annual income. Nate and Robert stayed inside, ostensibly to discuss some business matter, but Emma suspected it was strategic separation. "He's happy," Catherine said without preamble as they walked among the flowers. "I haven't seen him this happy in years." Emma didn't know what to say to that. "He makes me happy too." "I'm sure he does. But I want you to understand something, Emma." Catherine stopped, turning to face her directly. "My son's life is complicated. The money, the company, the public attention, it's a lot for anyone to navigate." Here it comes, Emma thought, the gentle warning to back off. "I know it's overwhelming," she said carefully. "We're figuring it out. I'm sure you are, but what I want you to know is this." Catherine's expression softened. "I don't care about your background or your bank account or whether you know which fork to use. I care that you make my son laugh, that you're honest with him, that when you look at him you see Nathaniel, not the CEO or the net worth." Emma's throat tightened unexpectedly. "I do. See him, I mean." "I know. I could tell within 5 minutes." Catherine smiled. "The freckles help." The freckles. He mentioned them several times, with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for discussing quarterly earnings. She touched Emma's arm gently. "You're good for him. Just be patient with the complications, okay? They're not going away." "I'm trying." "That's all anyone can ask." They walked back inside to find Nate and Robert laughing over old photo albums. Nate had his tie loosened. When had he been wearing a tie? And looked younger, more relaxed. "Did she show you the picture of me at 8 with the missing front teeth?" he asked as they approached. "Not yet, but I'm very interested now," Emma said. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of embarrassing childhood photos, stories that made Nate groan, and Benson finally deciding Emma was worthy of attention. By the time they left, her cheeks hurt from smiling and her anxiety had been replaced by something warm and hopeful. "That went well," Nate said as they drove back toward her apartment. "Your mom is terrifying in the best way. She liked you a lot. How can you tell? She used her good china, and she never brings out the photo albums unless she's already decided someone's family." Emma's heart skipped. Family's a big word. Is it too big? She thought about it, really thought about it. A month ago, she'd been single, struggling with rent, convinced that romance was something that happened to other people. Now she was dating a man who made her laugh, who looked at her like she mattered, who wanted to take her to San Francisco just to have evenings together. "No," she said quietly, "it's not too big. It's just new." He pulled up to her building, a converted warehouse in Capitol Hill that was all exposed brick and questionable heating. The contrast to his parents' waterfront estate was almost comical. "Come to San Francisco with me," Nate said again, turning to face her. "I know it's fast and probably crazy, but I want you there. I've never been the spontaneous type. Maybe it's time to try." Emma looked at her building, then at him, this man who somehow made everything feel both terrifying and possible. "Okay," she said. "Let's be spontaneous." His kiss was soft and sure, and tasted like chocolate mousse and new beginnings. When they pulled apart, Emma was grinning. "I'm going to San Francisco," she said, testing the words. "You're going to San Francisco. With a billionaire. With me. Same thing. Not to me." She kissed him again, then reluctantly pulled away. "I should go. I have to figure out how to pack for a trip I can't quite believe I'm taking. Pack comfortable. We're keeping it simple." "Simple," Right, because everything about this is simple. He laughed. Good night, Emma. Good night. She practically floated up the 3 flights to her apartment, her phone already buzzing with a text from Sophie, demanding details. But before she could respond, another message came through, from an unknown number. Unknown. Saw you at the Ashford house tonight. Cute dress. Doesn't change what you are, though. Gold digger. Emma's good mood evaporated instantly. She stared at the message, her hands suddenly shaking. Someone had been watching them. Someone knew where she'd been. Someone cared enough to send threats. She looked at the window, suddenly aware of how exposed her apartment was, how easy it would be for someone to... Her phone rang. Nate. Hey, she answered, trying to keep her voice steady. I forgot to tell you, my assistant will email you the flight details tomorrow. We leave Tuesday at noon, so... He stopped. Emma, what's wrong? Nothing, I'm fine. You're a terrible liar. What happened? She looked at the message again. She could hide it, pretend everything was fine, not add to his worries. Or she could follow her own rule. Talk about it. I got a text, she said quietly, from someone who saw us at your parents' house. Silence on the other end, heavy and tense. Then, what did it say? She read it to him, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm coming over, he said immediately. Nate, you don't have to. I'm already in my car. Lock your door. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He hung up before she could argue. Emma locked the door, then checked it twice more, her earlier joy completely shattered. This was the complication Catherine had warned about. This was reality, and it was only just beginning. Nate arrived in 12 minutes, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Emma heard his knock, 3 firm raps, and checked the peephole before opening the door. He looked disheveled, his hair messed from running his hands through it, still wearing the button-down from dinner. Show me, he said without preamble. She handed him her phone, watched his jaw tighten as he read the message, then read it again. I'm calling my security team. Nate, it's just a text. It's a threat from someone who followed us. He was already dialing. Someone who knows where you live. The reality of that settled over Emma like cold water. She sat on her couch, a second-hand find she'd reupholstered herself, and wrapped her arms around her knees while Nate paced, speaking in clipped tones to someone named Marcus. Yes, I understand it's Sunday night. I don't care. No, she's not public figure, that's the point. Tomorrow morning, first thing. He hung up and sat beside her, close but not touching. Marcus is my head of security. He's going to trace the number, increase monitoring, and sweep your building for vulnerabilities tomorrow. That seems extreme. Someone threatening you is extreme. His voice was tight with controlled anger. I should have anticipated this. Should have had security in place already. How could you possibly anticipate some random person deciding to harass me? Because it's happened before. Emma looked at him sharply. What? Nate rubbed his face, suddenly looking exhausted. 2 years ago, I dated someone briefly. A lawyer, smart, confident. She started getting messages about a month in. Then someone broke into her car. Then her apartment. He paused. She ended things after that, said it wasn't worth it. Jesus, Nate. They never found who did it. Probably some obsessed investor or competitor trying to get leverage. But she was right to leave. It wasn't fair to put her through that. Emma processed this, her mind racing. Is that why you haven't dated since? Partially. Also because I was building the company and didn't have time for, he gestured vaguely, life. And now? Now I met someone worth fighting for. He finally looked at her directly. If you want to walk away, I understand. This isn't what you signed up for. Emma thought about the text. About someone watching her, judging her, threatening her, about how her quiet, chaotic, freelance life had suddenly become complicated in ways she'd never imagined. Then she thought about Nate's laugh, his terrible pottery, the way he looked at her freckles like they were precious. I'm not walking away, she said. I'm scared, and I hate that someone is doing this, but I'm not leaving. Relief flooded his expression. You're sure? No. But I'm staying anyway. He pulled her into his arms, and Emma let herself sink into the embrace, breathing in his cologne and trying to steady her racing heart. I'm staying here tonight, Nate said into her hair. On the couch, I'm not leaving you alone. You don't have to. Emma, please. She pulled back to look at him. Okay, but fair warning, my couch is terrible for sleeping. You'll regret this by morning. I've slept in airport chairs during layovers. I'll survive. She made tea while Nate made more calls. To his lawyer, to someone named Patricia who apparently handled crisis communications, to his assistant to clear his morning schedule. Emma listened to him efficiently manage the crisis, watched him transform from the relaxed man at dinner into the CEO who commanded a billion-dollar company. It should have been intimidating. Instead, it made her feel safer. Okay, he said finally, accepting the mug of chamomile she offered. Marcus will be here at 8 a.m. to assess security. Patricia is monitoring online mentions of us. If this escalates to social media, she'll handle it. And I've instructed my legal team to prepare restraining order paperwork if we can identify the sender. You did all that in 20 minutes? I'm efficient when I'm angry. Emma curled up beside him on the couch, tucking her feet under her. This is surreal. Which part? All of it. A month ago, my biggest worry was whether I could afford the fancy coffee beans. Now I'm getting threatening texts and planning trips to San Francisco with a man who has a security team on speed dial. If it helps, a month ago, my biggest worry was a server migration. He set down his tea. This is better. Even with the death threats? Those aren't death threats, just harassment, completely different. Oh, well then, much better. He smiled despite the tension. Are you still okay with San Francisco? I'd understand if I'm going, Emma interrupted firmly. I'm not letting some internet coward ruin this. That's my girl. The possessiveness in his voice sent warmth through her chest. She rested her head on his shoulder, suddenly exhausted. Tell me something good. Something that has nothing to do with threats or security teams. Nate was quiet for a moment, his arm coming around her shoulders. When I was 12, I convinced my parents to let me build a computer from scratch. Spent 3 months ordering parts, learning how everything connected. It didn't work the first time I turned it on. What happened? I'd installed the RAM backward, fried the whole motherboard. He laughed softly. My dad found me in the garage at 2 a.m., crying over this pile of broken components. Know what he said? What? Good, now you know what doesn't work. Try again. Emma smiled. Did you? Took me 6 more months, but yeah, that computer ran for 8 years. He paused. I still have it, actually, in storage. Can't bring myself to throw it away. You're sentimental. Selectively. His fingers traced absent patterns on her arm. I keep things that matter. They sat in comfortable silence, the Seattle night quiet around them, except for the occasional car passing below. Emma felt her eyelids growing heavy, the adrenaline crash finally hitting. You should sleep, Nate said gently. I'll be right here. The couch really is terrible. I've slept in worse places. She didn't have the energy to argue. Emma kissed his cheek, grabbed pillows and a blanket from her bedroom, and set him up as comfortably as possible. Then she retreated to her room, leaving the door slightly ajar, close enough to feel safe, far enough to breathe. She expected to lie awake, anxious and paranoid. Instead, she fell asleep within minutes, the knowledge of Nate in the next room a strange but powerful comfort. Marcus arrived at exactly 8 a.m., a compact man in his 40s with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who missed nothing. Emma made coffee while he and Nate discussed building security, entry points and camera coverage in terms she only half understood. Your locks are standard, Marcus said, examining her door. Easy to pick. I'll have new ones installed by tomorrow. Keypad entry, reinforced strike plates. Is that really necessary? Emma asked. Yes. No hesitation, no room for argument. By 9, Marcus had catalogued 17 security vulnerabilities in her building, scheduled installations for 3 different systems, and suggested Emma vary her routine for the next few weeks. Don't leave at the same time every day. Use different coffee shops. If you notice anyone following you, call me immediately." He handed her a card with a direct number. Emma stared at it, the reality of the situation settling deeper. After Marcus left, Nate made breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast that they ate standing at her kitchen counter. He'd slept in his dress shirt, now wrinkled and untucked, looking more human and less CEO than she'd ever seen him. "I have meetings this morning," he said reluctantly, "but I can cancel." "Don't. I have work too." Emma gestured at her laptop, where 2 logo revisions waited. The yoga studio wants their lotus flower more zen but also energetic, which is apparently a thing. "Will you text me every hour, just so I know you're okay?" "That seems excessive." "Humor me." She agreed, and he left after another lingering kiss, promising to pick her up Tuesday morning for their flight. Emma watched him go, then turned to face her apartment, now a place that felt slightly less safe than it had 24 hours ago. Her phone buzzed. "Sophie. Sophie. Lunch today?" "I need details about family dinner." Emma, can't. Working also had an exciting night of threatening texts and security assessments. "Sophie. What? Calling you in 5. The call came in 3 minutes. Emma spent the next hour explaining everything while Sophie oscillated between fury and concern. "This is insane," Sophie said. "You need to tell the police. Marcus is handling it." "Marcus is security, not law enforcement." "Nate's lawyers are involved too. Apparently they can do more than the police at this stage." Sophie was quiet for a moment. "Are you okay? Really okay?" Emma considered lying, then decided against it. "I'm scared and angry, and also somehow still weirdly happy about San Francisco. That's called cognitive dissonance. That's called dating someone amazing while dealing with the nightmare parts of his life. Do you want me to come over? I can work from your place today." The offer made Emma's throat tight. "No, I'm okay. Marcus installed a panic button app on my phone. I'm basically a superhero now." "Emma, I'm fine, Soph, really, but thank you." After they hung up, Emma tried to focus on work. The lotus flower gradually became more zen and energetic, whatever that meant. She finished the yoga studio logo, started on the bookstore's revision, and texted Nate every hour as promised. "Emma, 9 a.m. Still alive. Logo looking good." Nate, 9:02 a.m. "Excellent, also alive. Board meeting less good." Emma, 10 a.m. "Alive. Made coffee. Living dangerously." Nate, 10:03 a.m. "My meetings should be that exciting." By Tuesday morning, Emma had packed and repacked her suitcase 4 times. She'd never been to San Francisco, had no idea what comfortable meant in Nate's world, and was operating on approximately 3 hours of sleep and pure anxiety. The Tesla arrived at 11:30. Nate loaded her bag, a battered duffel that looked pathetic next to his leather carry-on, and they headed to the airport. "We're flying commercial?" Emma asked as they pulled into the main terminal. Nate glanced at her. "Did you think we were taking a private jet? I mean, and maybe. I do have access to the company jet, but it felt presumptuous for a 4-day trip." He paused. "Do you want to take the jet?" "God, no. I'm already overwhelmed. Adding private aviation might break me." First class, however, was its own form of overwhelming. The seats were essentially beds. A flight attendant offered champagne before they even took off. Emma accepted it, figuring if she was doing this, she might as well commit. "To spontaneity," Nate said, raising his own glass. "To security upgrades and terrible decisions," Emma countered. "Those aren't mutually exclusive." The flight was smooth. Emma tried to work on her laptop but kept getting distracted by the view. Clouds like cotton, the landscape far below transforming from green to brown to the sprawling mess of California. Nate worked beside her, typing emails with focused intensity, occasionally pointing out landmarks. They landed at SFO in the early afternoon, the California sun bright and warm after Seattle's gray. A car was waiting, not a Tesla this time, but a sleek black sedan, with a driver named James, who greeted Nate by name. The hotel was in Union Square, a beautiful old building that managed to feel both grand and intimate. The lobby had marble floors and fresh flowers everywhere. Emma tried not to gawk. "We have a suite," Nate said, as they rode the elevator to the 12th floor. "2 bedrooms unless... we can share if you're comfortable, but I didn't want to assume." "2 bedrooms is perfect," Emma said, touched by his uncertainty. The confident CEO disappeared sometimes, replaced by someone just as unsure as she was. The suite was gorgeous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a living room bigger than her entire apartment, a bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. Emma's bedroom had a king bed and more pillows than any human could possibly need. "This is ridiculous," she said, bouncing slightly on the mattress. Nate leaned against the doorframe, smiling. "Good ridiculous or bad ridiculous?" "I don't know yet. Ask me after I've used that bathtub." He had meetings until 6, so Emma explored the neighborhood. She walked through Union Square past high-end boutiques and street performers, found a bookstore, and spent an hour browsing. She texted Nate pictures of interesting book covers, received responses ranging from "buy it" to "absolutely buy that one." Around 5, her phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. Her heart jumped, remembering the text. But the area code was local, San Francisco. "Hello, Emma Clark?" A woman's voice, professional and cool. "Yes. My name is Jennifer Watts. I'm a reporter with the San Francisco Chronicle. I was hoping to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Nathaniel Ashford." Emma's stomach dropped. "How did you get this number?" "I'm a reporter. It's my job." A pause. "Look, I'm working on a piece about tech CEOs and their personal lives. Nate's been very private, so naturally people are curious about who he's dating. I can write this story with or without your input, but I thought you might want to tell your side." "My side of what?" "Of how a freelance designer from Seattle ended up dating one of the most eligible bachelors in tech. It's a compelling story. It's my private life, which became public the moment you stepped out with a billionaire." Jennifer's voice softened slightly. "I'm not trying to be cruel, Emma, but this story is happening. You can help shape it, or you can let other people shape it for you." Emma hung up, her hands shaking. She immediately called Nate. "A reporter just called me," she said when he answered. "Jennifer Watts, San Francisco Chronicle." Silence. "Then, what did you tell her?" "Nothing. I hung up." Emma sat on a bench watching tourists pass. "She said she's writing a story either way. She's fishing, looking for quotes, trying to confirm details." Nate's voice was tight. "Don't answer if she calls again. I'll have Patricia handle it." "How did she even get my number?" "These people have resources. It's..." He stopped. "I'm so sorry, Emma. I'll leave the meeting now. I can be there in 20 minutes. "No, finish your meeting. I'm fine." She wasn't fine, but she was functional. "I'll see you at 6. "You're sure?" "Yeah, just hurry." She spent the next hour walking aimlessly, trying to process. The threats had been scary but abstract. This was different. This was someone actively digging into her life, preparing to expose it to thousands of readers. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number, different area code. She let it go to voicemail, then another and another. By the time she got back to the hotel, she had 7 missed calls from various numbers, 3 voicemails from different reporters, and a text from a gossip blog asking for comment on rumors of tension in her relationship. Nate was waiting in the suite, pacing. He crossed to her immediately, pulling her into his arms. "I'm okay," she said into his shoulder, "just overwhelmed." "Patricia's putting out a statement, something vague about respecting our privacy. It won't stop them, but it might slow them down." "Why do they even care?" "Because I've been private for years, and now I'm not. That's a story." He pulled back to look at her. "If this is too much, stop offering me exits. I'm not taking them. Even if it gets worse." Emma thought about it. Really thought about it. The threats, the reporters, the constant invasion. Then she looked at Nate, at the genuine concern and fear in his eyes, the way he held her like she was something precious. "Even then," she said, "but I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. If something's coming, if you know it'll be complicated, you tell me. I can handle hard. I can't handle surprises. I promise. They ordered room service and ate on the couch, watching the city lights come on below. Nate told her about his meetings, the investors who were cautiously optimistic, the partner who was being difficult, the technical challenges ahead. Emma told him about the bookstore, the street performer who juggled flaming batons, the sourdough bread she'd bought on a whim. Normal things, small things, anchors in a storm that kept growing. Around 10, Emma's phone buzzed one more time. She almost ignored it, but something made her check. Sophie, check TechCrunch, now! With dread, Emma opened the site. The headline made her blood run cold. Nathaniel Ashford's new romance. What we know about Emma Clark, and the questions being raised about conflict of interest. Below it was a photo of her leaving Nate's office building, a place she'd never been. The article suggested she was a company employee, potentially benefiting from her relationship with the CEO. It cited anonymous sources, claiming favoritism, questioned her qualifications, and painted her as someone using their relationship for professional gain. Every word was a lie. "Nate," she said quietly. He read over her shoulder, and she felt him go rigid. "This is defamation, clear defamation. My lawyers will have this taken down by morning." But people have already read it, already believe it. "Then we'll sue for damages. We'll what? Sue everyone who writes something mean? That's not sustainable." Emma set down her phone, her hands surprisingly steady, despite the panic rising in her chest. "This is my life now, isn't it? People making up stories, questioning everything I do, assuming the worst. Not if we fight it, not if we—" "Nate." She turned to face him fully. "I need you to be honest with me. Does it ever actually stop?" His silence was answer enough. Emma nodded slowly, processing. Then she stood, walked to the window and looked out at San Francisco, a city she'd been excited to explore just hours ago. Now it felt like enemy territory. "I need to think," she said quietly, "just for tonight. Can I just think?" "Of course." His voice was wrecked. "Emma, I'm not leaving. I just need space to process." She retreated to her bedroom and closed the door, then sat on that ridiculous bed with too many pillows, and finally let herself cry. Emma woke to soft morning light filtering through gauzy curtains and the distant sound of San Francisco traffic. For a blissful moment she forgot everything, the articles, the lies, the reporters circling like sharks. Then she remembered, and the weight settled back onto her chest. Her phone showed 8:17 a.m. and a single text from Nate, sent at 6:30. "I'm here when you're ready. No pressure, just here." She found him in the suite's living room, laptop open, surrounded by empty coffee cups. He looked like he hadn't slept, still wearing yesterday's shirt, hair disheveled from running his hands through it. "Hey," she said softly. He looked up, relief flooding his features. "Hey, did you sleep at all?" "No. I was working with the legal team. The article's down. TechCrunch issued a retraction and apology. Turns out their anonymous sources were fabricated by a competitor trying to damage the company's reputation." He closed the laptop. "We're pursuing legal action." Emma sat beside him, tucking her legs underneath her. "That's good. It doesn't undo the damage. People already saw it, shared it, believed it." "I know." Silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken fears. Finally Nate spoke. "I thought about it all night, about what I could do differently, how to protect you better, how to make this easier." He turned to face her. "And I realized I can't. I can throw money at security, lawyers at defamation, PR teams at damage control, but I can't make this simple. I can't make dating me easy. I know that too. So I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest." He took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "Is this worth it? Am I worth it?" Emma looked at him, really looked, at the exhaustion in his eyes, the vulnerability in his expression, the way he held himself like he was bracing for rejection. She thought about the past month, The pottery disaster, his parents' warmth, his terrible couch sleeping, the way he texted her every hour just to know she was safe. She thought about the threats, the lies, the invasion of privacy, the constant feeling of being watched, judged, found wanting. Then she thought about something her brother had told her years ago when she was deciding whether to quit her stable design job to go freelance. The question isn't whether it's hard. Everything worth doing is hard. The question is whether you'll regret not trying. "I'm terrified," she said finally. Of the attention, the judgment, the feeling like I'm constantly one wrong move away from being torn apart online. I'm terrified that I'm not strong enough for this, that eventually it'll break me. Nate's expression crumbled. "Emma, I'm not finished." She squeezed his hand. "But I'm also terrified of walking away, of wondering what we could have been, of giving up on something real because it's complicated." She smiled, feeling tears prick her eyes. "You asked if you're worth it. The answer is yes. This, us, is worth fighting for. I just need you to fight with me, not for me." What does that mean? It means no more trying to fix everything alone, no more shouldering all the burden. We're partners, right? So we handle this together. The good, the bad, and the absolutely insane. Relief transformed his face. Together. Together. She leaned forward and kissed him, soft and sure. When they pulled apart, she felt steadier than she had in days. "Now we're in San Francisco for 2 more days. I refuse to let internet trolls ruin that, so what's the plan?" Nate smiled, his real smile, the one that made his eyes crinkle. "I have 1 more meeting this afternoon, but the morning is ours. What do you want to do? Something normal. Something that has nothing to do with tech or business or reporters. I know just the place." They took a cable car to Fisherman's Wharf, squeezing in among tourists and locals, holding the brass poles as the car climbed steep hills with terrifying casualness. Emma laughed as Nate nearly lost his balance on a sharp turn, catching him around the waist. "You're enjoying this," he accused. "Watching a CEO almost fall on his ass on public transportation? Absolutely." They ate clam chowder in sourdough bread bowls, walked along the pier watching sea lions bark and fight for space on wooden platforms, browsed tourist shops selling overpriced San Francisco sweatshirts. Nate bought her one, a ridiculous tie-dye hoodie that said, "I left my heart in San Francisco." "This is the tackiest thing I've ever seen," Emma said, pulling it on immediately. "I love it. It matches your aesthetic." "What aesthetic? Broke artist with questionable taste. Authentic, which is better than any aesthetic." They held hands openly, and Emma waited for the anxiety to hit. The fear of being photographed, recognized, turned into another headline. But surrounded by crowds of people who didn't know or care who Nate was, she felt almost normal. A teenager asked if Nate would take a photo of her and her friends. He obliged, patiently waiting while they adjusted their poses 3 times. Afterward, one of the girls looked at him more closely. "Wait, are you someone famous?" "Not really," Nate said easily. "He's tech famous," Emma offered, "which is like being famous to approximately 12 people." The girls lost interest immediately, returning to their selfies. Nate grinned at Emma. "Tech famous, I like that. It's accurate." They walked to the Golden Gate Bridge, joined a scattered crowd of tourists taking photos against the iconic orange towers and swirling fog. Emma pulled out her phone for a selfie, and Nate wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Smile," she instructed. "I am smiling." "Bigger! You look like you're being held hostage." He laughed and she caught it, that genuine, unguarded moment. Later, looking at the photo, she'd see what made it special. They looked happy. Simply, completely happy. Around 2, Nate's phone started buzzing with increasing urgency. "I need to head to the meeting," he said reluctantly. "Go. I'll explore more, maybe find that bookstore from yesterday." "You sure?" "Nate, I'm a grown woman who's been navigating cities alone since college. I'll survive a few hours in San Francisco." He kissed her forehead. "Text me if anything feels off." Marcus has people in the area. You mean I have a shadow? You have discreet protection. That's both comforting and deeply weird. After he left, Emma did find the bookstore, a 3-story paradise called City Lights that smelled like old paper and new possibilities. She bought 2 novels and a book of poetry, then found a cafe nearby and settled in with coffee and her laptop. The bookstore logo needed final revisions. She worked for an hour, tweaking fonts and adjusting the color palette, occasionally glancing up to people watch through the window. San Francisco moved around her, diverse, chaotic, beautiful. She could see why people loved it here. Her phone rang. "Sophie, are you okay?" her friend demanded immediately. "I saw the article got taken down, but still, I'm okay. Actually okay, not fake okay." "Really?" Emma looked at her tacky sweatshirt, her pile of books, the half-finished logo on her screen. "Yeah, we had a long talk this morning. Set some boundaries, made some decisions. We're figuring it out. And the reporters. Nate's team is handling it. Apparently defamation lawsuits are an excellent deterrent." "I'm so proud of you," Sophie said, "for not running away. I thought about it, but then I remembered you're the one who set us up, so this is partially your fault. Seemed unfair to quit and let you win." Sophie laughed. "That's my girl, Spider's motivation." They talked for another 30 minutes, Sophie updating her on Seattle gossip and Emma describing the sea lions in exhausting detail. When they hung up, Emma felt lighter. She was finishing the logo when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Her heart jumped, but the message was innocuous. "Emma Clark, I think we need to talk. Vanessa Chen." The name meant nothing to her. Emma was about to delete it when another message came through. "I was the lawyer Nate dated 2 years ago, the one who got threatened." Emma's stomach dropped. She stared at the message, unsure how to respond, or if she should respond at all. Finally she typed, "How did you get my number?" "Vanessa, same way the reporters did. I'm a lawyer. I have resources." "Emma, what do you want?" "Vanessa, to warn you, can we meet? I'm in the city this week." Everything in Emma screamed this was a bad idea. But curiosity and something else, a need to understand what she was really facing, won out. "Emma, when and where?" "Vanessa, there's a wine bar called the Barrel Room on Chestnut. 5 o'clock. "Emma, I'll be there." She probably should have told Nate, definitely should have told Marcus. Instead, Emma showed up at the Barrel Room at exactly 5, her heart pounding, scanning for someone who fit the vague description of lawyer who dated Nate. A woman at the bar raised her hand slightly, mid-30s, sleek black hair, wearing a burgundy blazer that screamed expensive. She stood as Emma approached. "Emma?" "Vanessa." They shook hands awkwardly, then sat at a small table in the back. Vanessa ordered wine. Emma stuck with water, wanting to keep her head clear. "Thank you for meeting me," Vanessa said. "I wasn't sure you would. I wasn't sure I should." "Smart." Vanessa smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Nate's probably told you about me, about what happened." "Some. The threats, the break-in." "Did he tell you they never stopped?" Emma froze. "What?" "Even after we broke up, I still got messages for months. Someone slashed my tires twice. I had to move apartments, change my number 3 times. Vanessa leaned forward. "The police couldn't do anything. Nate's security team couldn't find who was behind it. Eventually it just stopped. But it took 8 months. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I saw the articles about you, saw your face, your name, and I remembered how that felt, being exposed, vulnerable, targeted." Her expression softened slightly. "I wanted to warn you. This doesn't just go away because you're strong or because he has resources. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better." Emma's mouth was dry. "Did Nate know it continued after you broke up?" "I never told him. What was the point? We were over." Vanessa paused. "But I'm telling you because you're not, and you deserve to know what you're signing up for. You think I should leave him? I think you should protect yourself, make decisions with full information." She pulled out a business card. If you ever need legal help, restraining orders, defamation cases, anything, call me, no charge. Consider it solidarity. Emma took the card, her hands shaking slightly. Why do this? You don't even know me. Because nobody warned me. And I want to be the person who warns you. Vanessa stood, leaving cash on the table for her wine. For what it's worth, Nate's a good man. He didn't deserve what happened to me, and you don't deserve what's happening to you. But good men don't always come with easy lives. She left, and Emma sat alone at the table, processing. The threatening text, the reporters. Now this, confirmation that the danger was real, persistent, potentially endless. Her phone buzzed. Nate. Meeting wrapped early. Where are you? Emma looked at Vanessa's business card, then at Nate's text. She'd promised no secrets, promised to handle things together. Emma. Wine bar on Chestnut. We need to talk. He arrived within 20 minutes, concern written across his face. Emma was still sitting at the same table, Vanessa's card in front of her like evidence. What happened? He asked, sitting down. Emma told him everything. The text, the meeting, Vanessa's warnings. She watched his expression shift from confusion to understanding, to something that looked like guilt. I didn't know, he said quietly, that it continued for her. She never told me. She thought there was no point. You were over. But if I'd known, you would have what? Fixed it. Protected her. Nate, you can't control everything. Emma reached across the table, taking his hand. But I need to know, honestly, how bad this could get. No minimizing, no protecting my feelings. The truth. He was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. The truth is, I don't know. I've had stalkers, obsessed investors, competitors who play dirty. Most back off when faced with legal action. Some don't. He met her eyes. The truth is, I can't guarantee your safety or privacy. I can make it harder for people to hurt you, but I can't make it impossible. That's terrifying. I know. And you live with that every day? I've learned to. Built walls, kept people at a distance, controlled what I could. He squeezed her hand. But then I met you, and all those walls felt like prison bars. I don't want to live like that anymore, but I also don't want to put you in danger. Emma looked at him. This brilliant, successful, lonely man who'd learned to protect himself by isolating himself. She thought about Vanessa's warnings, the very real risks, the price of loving someone whose life came with complications. Then she thought about the Golden Gate Bridge selfie, the terrible pottery, his mother showing her embarrassing childhood photos, all the small, perfect moments that made up the reality of them. Here's what we're going to do, she said firmly. We're going to finish this trip. We're going to fly back to Seattle. And we're going to set up every security measure Marcus recommends. No arguments from me. I'm going to learn self-defense. You're going to stop trying to handle everything alone, and we're going to live our lives anyway. Emma, I'm not done. We're also going to set boundaries. No more surprise information. If something happens, a threat, a reporter, anything, we tell each other immediately. No protecting, no hiding. She paused. And if it gets to be too much, if I'm drowning, I promise to tell you before I run. Deal? He pulled her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles. Deal. Good. She stood, pulling him up with her. Now take me somewhere beautiful and completely impractical for dinner. I want to remember tonight for the right reasons. They ended up at a rooftop restaurant overlooking the bay, eating overpriced seafood and drinking wine that cost more than Emma's monthly coffee budget. The sunset painted the sky in oranges and pinks, and the city glittered below them like promises. Can I tell you something? Nate said as they shared a chocolate dessert that was more art than food. Always. I've been thinking about what comes after San Francisco, what our life looks like when we're back in Seattle, dealing with reality. Emma's heart skipped. And I want you to move in with me. She nearly choked on her wine. What? Not immediately. Not until you're ready. But Emma, he leaned forward, his expression serious. Your apartment isn't secure. The building has issues. And yes, I can upgrade everything, but at some point it's easier to just be together in a place that's actually safe. You want me to move into your penthouse. I want you somewhere I know you're protected, where we can actually build a life together instead of splitting time between two places. He paused. But I don't want you to feel pressured. This is an offer, not an ultimatum. Emma processed this, her mind racing. A month ago, she'd been living paycheck to paycheck, eating ramen over her sink, convinced romance was for other people. Now a billionaire was asking her to move in with him. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Not because I don't want to, but because it's huge, and I need to make sure I'm doing it for the right reasons. What would be the wrong reasons? Fear, convenience, because it's easier than figuring out security at my place. She met his eyes. If I move in with you, I want it to be because I can't imagine waking up anywhere else. Not because I'm scared. Nate smiled, soft and understanding. That's fair. They stayed at the restaurant until closing, talking about everything and nothing. His next business trip, her bookstore logo, whether sea lions were actually cute or just loud. Normal couple things, anchoring them to reality. Walking back to the hotel, hand in hand through San Francisco's nighttime streets, Emma felt something shift inside her. The fear was still there, probably would always be there, but it wasn't in control anymore. She was. Their last day in San Francisco was deliberately low-key. They slept late, ordered room service for breakfast, spent the morning tangled together on the couch watching bad movies. Nate had no meetings, Emma had no deadlines. It was perfectly, wonderfully ordinary. Around 2, Emma's phone rang. Marcus. Miss Clark, we've identified the source of the threatening text. Her stomach tightened. Who? A former employee of Ashford Tech, terminated 6 months ago for performance issues. He's been posting about Mr. Ashford on various forums, expressing resentment. Marcus paused. We've turned everything over to the police. He's been issued a restraining order. If he contacts you again, he'll be arrested. That's it? It's over? This particular situation, yes. But Ms. Clark, his tone gentled slightly. This won't be the last time someone takes issue with your relationship. I need you to understand that. I do. Thank you, Marcus. She told Nate, watched relief and residual anger war on his face. It's something, he said. At least we know. At least we know, she echoed. They flew back to Seattle that evening, first class again, Emma wearing her tacky sweatshirt and reading one of her new books. Nate worked on his laptop, occasionally reaching over to hold her hand or point out something interesting below. Landing at SeaTac felt like coming home. The grey Seattle sky, the familiar airport chaos, even the rain starting as they walked to the car, all of it comfortable and known. Nate drove her back to her apartment, carrying her duffel bag up the 3 flights despite her protests. You don't have to. I want to. Inside, her apartment looked exactly the same, messy, chaotic, covered in design sketches and coffee cups. But it felt different somehow, smaller, less like home and more like a temporary stop. Think about it, Nate said, setting down her bag. The moving in thing. No pressure, no timeline, just think about it. I will. He kissed her goodnight, long and thorough and full of promise, then left. Emma locked the new reinforced door, armed the security system Marcus had installed, and collapsed onto her terrible couch. Her phone buzzed. Sophie, you're back. Coffee tomorrow. I need all the details. Emma, 10 a.m. at the usual place. Prepare for a novel. She looked around her apartment one more time, really looking. At the design books scattered everywhere, the makeshift desk made of sawhorses and plywood, the kitchen that barely fit one person. She'd built a life here, small, chaotic, entirely her own. The question was whether she was ready to build a different life, a shared life, a life that came with security systems and business trips and the constant awareness of being watched. Emma pulled out her laptop and opened a new document, started typing. Pros and cons of moving in with Nate. Pros: safety, actual professional security, More time together. That bathtub, not practical but significant. Waking up with him every day, not splitting time between two places, building something real together. Cons. Giving up independence. What if it doesn't work out? His place is intimidating fast, maybe too fast. What do I do with all my stuff, losing my space, my chaos, my controlled environment? She stared at the list for a long time. Then, at the bottom, she added one more line. Question. Am I more afraid of moving in or of missing the chance? The answer, she realized, was the second one. Emma closed the laptop, picked up her phone, and texted Nate. I've been thinking. Nate. And? Emma. And I want to see your place, the real version, not the guest tour. I want to see where I'd actually be living. Nate. Tomorrow? Emma. Tomorrow. Nate. I'll pick you up at noon. And Emma? Emma. Yeah? Nate. Whatever you decide, we'll figure it out. Together. Emma. Together. Miss. She fell asleep on her terrible couch, still wearing the tacky San Francisco sweatshirt. A small smile on her face, and possibility blooming in her chest like spring flowers pushing through concrete. Outside, Seattle rain fell soft and steady, washing the city clean. And somewhere across town, Nathaniel Ashford sat in his penthouse overlooking Elliott Bay, looking at the extra toothbrush he'd bought just in case, hoping with everything he had that Emma would take the leap. Not because his life was easy or simple or safe, but because what they were building together, freckles and all, chaos and complications included, was worth every risk. 3 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of Nate's penthouse, their penthouse now, making coffee in pajama pants and one of his old MIT sweatshirts. Rain streaked the floor-to-ceiling windows, and Elliott Bay stretched grey and beautiful below. Her design equipment was set up in the second bedroom, which Nate had immediately surrendered as your creative space. Her terrible couch sat in the corner of the living room, looking absurd next to his expensive furniture, but he'd refused to let her get rid of it. It's part of your story, he'd said. Our story now. The threatening messages had slowed, then stopped. 2 more reporters had tried to contact her. Patricia had handled both. Emma had started self-defense classes and hated every minute but went anyway. She'd met Nate's entire team, suffered through several charity galas in borrowed dresses, and learned to navigate his world without losing herself in it. It wasn't easy. Some days she missed the simplicity of her old life, the anonymity, the freedom to be invisible. But then Nate would come home from a brutal day of meetings and collapse beside her, his head in her lap while she worked on a logo, and she'd remember why this was worth it. They'd had their first real fight 3 weeks ago, about him making decisions without consulting her, about her shutting down instead of communicating. They'd yelled, cried, and then talked for 4 hours straight, establishing boundaries and expectations and promises. They were figuring it out. Together, imperfectly, messily, but genuinely. Her phone buzzed. Sophie, lunch this week? I need to hear about the gala disaster. Emma, it wasn't a disaster. I only knocked over 1 champagne glass. Sophie, according to the Chronicle Society page, you brought refreshing authenticity to an otherwise stuffy affair. Emma, that's code for she doesn't know how to act at fancy parties. Sophie, or it's code for she's herself and people love it. Thursday lunch. Emma, Thursday works. Love you. Sophie, love you too, you crazy billionaire's girlfriend. Urdal. Emma smiled, setting down her phone as Nate emerged from the bedroom, hair damp from the shower, wearing the cashmere robe she'd bought him for his birthday. He crossed to her immediately, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. Morning, he murmured, morning. She leaned back into him. Coffee's ready. You're perfect. I'm caffeinated. There's a difference. He turned her around, and she saw something in his expression. Nervous excitement, barely contained. What? She asked. I have something to show you. He took her hand, leading her to the living room. On the coffee table sat a folder. Emma opened it, scanning the documents inside, property listings. 3 different apartments, all in Capitol Hill, all with studios or extra rooms perfect for design work. What is this? Options, Nate said. I know living here has been an adjustment. I know you miss your neighborhood, your independence. So I thought, maybe we find a middle ground, something that's ours, not mine. Somewhere you can have your space, but we're still together. Emma looked at him, her heart swelling. You'd leave this place? This perfect penthouse with the amazing view? For you? In a heartbeat. He cupped her face gently. Emma, I don't need the penthouse or the view or any of it. I just need you. And if you need chaos and Capitol Hill and a place that feels like us, then that's what we'll find. She kissed him, soft and slow, tasting coffee and forever. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. Can I tell you something? Always. 3 months ago, I was terrified of losing myself in your life, of becoming just an accessory to your success. She gestured around the penthouse. But this place, it's becoming home. Not because it's fancy or expensive, but because you're here. Because we're building something real. So you want to stay. I want us to decide together, look at the options, talk about what we need, what we want. She picked up the folder. But Nate, thank you for offering, for understanding why I might need this. Always. They spent the morning on the couch, going through listings, talking about neighborhoods and commutes, and whether they needed 2 bedrooms or 3. It was domestic and ordinary and perfect. Around noon, Emma's phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, then decided to take the chance. Hello? Emma Clark? A woman's voice, kind and unfamiliar. Yes? My name is Patricia Nguyen. I run a small design agency here in Seattle, and I've been following your work online. Your portfolio is remarkable. Emma's heart skipped. Thank you. I'm calling because we're expanding, and I'm looking for senior designers who bring both technical skill and authentic creative vision. Would you be interested in discussing a position? Emma looked at Nate, who was watching with curious concern. Yes, I'd be very interested. They scheduled a meeting for the following week. When Emma hung up, she was shaking slightly. Job offer? Nate asked. Potential. At an agency I've admired for years. She laughed, slightly hysterical. I've been freelance for so long I forgot what it feels like to be wanted professionally. You're incredibly talented. Of course you're wanted. What if they only called because of you? Because dating you gives me visibility. Nate pulled her close. Then they'll quickly learn that your talent has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you. He kissed her forehead. But Emma, I think they called because you're brilliant. And it's time the rest of the world caught up to what I already know. She buried her face in his shoulder, overwhelmed by possibility. 6 months ago, she'd shown up to a blind date with no makeup and 0 expectations. Now she was living with a man she loved, considering a dream job, navigating a life she'd never imagined. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely imperfect. It was also real. Her phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number. Her stomach clenched reflexively, but when she opened it, she found only 2 words. Congratulations, Vanessa. Somehow, the lawyer who'd warned her had been watching, supporting from a distance. Emma saved the number, typed back a simple thank you, and felt another piece of her new life click into place. You know what I want to do today, she said to Nate. What? Something completely normal. Go to that terrible diner you hate, eat mediocre pancakes, walk around Green Lake in the rain. She grinned. Be regular people for a few hours. I love that plan. They got dressed, Emma in jeans and her San Francisco sweatshirt, Nate in casual clothes that still probably cost more than her first car, and headed out into Seattle's perpetual drizzle. At the diner, they squeezed into a booth, ordered too much food, and talked about everything and nothing. An elderly couple at the next table smiled at them. A waitress complimented Emma's freckles. Nobody asked for photos or recognized Nate or cared about their relationship status. It was perfectly, wonderfully ordinary. I love you, Emma said suddenly, the words surprising even her. Nate's eyes widened. They hadn't said it yet, had danced around it, implied it, felt it, but never spoken it aloud. "You don't have to say it back," she rushed on. "I just wanted you to know. Even with all the chaos and complications and scary parts, I love you." He reached across the table, taking both her hands in his. "Emma Clark, I have loved you since you showed up to dinner with paint-stained jeans and zero apologies. I love your freckles, your terrible couch, your midnight design sessions, and your inability to parallel park. I love how you make me laugh and challenge me and refuse to let me hide behind work or money or walls. That's a yes, then?" "That's a yes." They left the diner hand in hand, walking through Seattle's rain-soaked streets without destination or timeline. Just together, figuring it out, building something real from freckles and pottery disasters, and the courage to show up exactly as they were. It wasn't a fairy tale, it wasn't easy or simple or guaranteed, but it was theirs, and that made it perfect.